Hello and welcome all to the 19th webinar of our knowledge series of the project. Today we have a very interesting topic, which is 5G satellite standardization activities in 3GPP, target solutions for remote and rural areas. Today we also have a great honor of having Mr. Nicholas Schubere, who is Solutions Line Manager from Thales Alenia Space. Maybe some of you can see him on the webcam and also his presentation. So before I invite Nicholas to start with the presentation today, a couple of lines on the topic and couple of lines about his own background. So Nicholas graduated from École Supérieure in Paris in 1988, and he has worked with Nokia and Alcatel mobile phones to design signal processing algorithms, medium access control protocols, integration test tools for 2G cellular handset and systems. He joined Thales Alenia Space to manage the development of satellite payload, equipment and design of advanced satellite communication systems. He has successfully initiated and led several European R&D projects in F6, FP7 and Horizon 2020. He has been chairing the SATCOM working group of ISI and Networld 2020 technology platforms. He has been also member of the partnership of the 5G Infrastructure Association, and among many other things, he's the lead representative of Thales in 3GPP TSG RAN, where he leads the standardization effort on satellite in 5G. He also chairs since 2006 the Satellite Communication and Navigation Working Group at ETSI. So last, when we were having India Mobile Congress here in India, we were speaking to Adrian Scars and he spoke very highly of Nicholas. So it's a great honor today to have you, Nicholas. And we also heard good things about you from other stakeholders. So the topic that you are covering today, reading a bit of abstract on that. 3GPP is currently assessing the seamless integration of non-terrestrial network components based on GEO, MEO, LEO, HAPS platforms in 5G system. The objective is to contribute to meet the challenges of mobile network operators and verticals in terms of reachability, especially in unserved, underserved areas, reliability and resiliency. The integration of non-terrestrial networks in 5G will allow slicing management, inter-access handover, dual connectivity in a seamless manner across access technologies as well as of connections to fixed or moving cells using NTN based integrated access and backhaul solutions. Also, Nicholas, you should know that our team leader, Mr. Andreas Sommer, sent this webinar information to South Pacific countries where, satellite could, in the 5G landscape, be one of the primary connectivity opportunity. So it's not just, let's say people here in India and people here in Europe, but also other countries joining in today. I hope that we can have a meaningful conversation today. So without further ado, may I invite you to start on the topic. Welcome, Nicholas.
Thank you very much, sir. So thank you very much for the introduction. I have prepared some slides in order to review the status of the standardization activities in 3GPP on satellite network for 5G. When we started, we had the intent to improve the integration of a satellite network together with cellular network. And we realized that we could only do it together with the cellular community, so that we have to develop jointly all the enablers for a smooth integration of satellite within cellular. So that was the reason we came to 3GPP about 3 years ago. And I will report about what we did and what are the future plans. First of all, I'd like to give you a brief overview of my company commitment to 5G. We are indeed an active member of 3GPP. We're also a member of the Broadband Indian Forum, as well as the NGMN, which is an alliance of mobile network operators together with some network vendors, and also GSMA. So as a rapporteur for the related satellite topics in both SA working groups and RAN working groups. So we're involved in all these working groups, and we are leading all the standardization efforts on the satellite integration in 5G. And I am also a moderator of SSIG, Satellite Stakeholder Interest Group. So this is a group which is outside 3GPP but gather more than 35 members of 3GPP. And we are coordinating views on how to best integrate satellite in 5G. And all of you are welcome to join this SSIG. You just have to send me an email, and I will be very happy to add you on the list. And there are regular conference calls where we report about the detailed activity in the different meetings. And of course, my company is part of the Thales group. When you look at this map, you can see the cellular coverage highlighted in, and you see a lot of places still with no coverage. And the situation with 5G is probably going to be similar. So it will leave out quite a lot of landmass, and but also a fraction of the population. But when you are talking about mobility, you are also interested to provide coverage, especially for verticals like the transport, transport logistics, as well as security-related activities, requires coverage. So it leaves quite a place for satellites to complement the cellular network. Our plan is to integrate satellites at different levels within the cellular network. So as you see in this slide above, here is in most populated areas, you rely on the cellular network, and when you come to the less populated areas, then you could rely on satellite, provided that it can deliver direct access to handset. And in between, for isolated remote areas or maritime or aeronautical on board planes, even high-speed trains could be embarking a cell that would be connected through backhaul via satellite. So these are the two main role for satellites within 5G. So one is direct access to provide coverage in remote areas, and the other one is the backhaul to provide hotspots in specific places. And by having a full integration of satellite in this 5G, then you can ensure handover for service continuity, so global service continuity. You can also provide multi-connectivity to increase the reliability of the service. And we see a role for not only geostationary satellite, but also for low Earth orbiting satellite, providing less delay, so very appropriate for delay-sensitive traffic, whereas GEO could provide more capacity in over isolated small areas. Why we are considering standards? Because in the satellite industry, satellite communication, apart from the DVB-S, which is for broadcast, all the rest is proprietary. Well, the reason is users, service providers, and verticals are willing to get standards to simplify implementation, maintenance, application development. And also governments would like to have standards in order to minimize cost. Because with open and global standards, you can ensure future-proof solutions and multi-vendor interoperability. As well, if we are building up standards out of 3GPP, or based on 3GPP, then you ensure a technology commonality with cellular, and therefore you can have access to economies of scale, and therefore reduce the cost, capex, and opex, and you benefit from a larger product diversity and a wider ecosystem. So in the long term, future non-terrestrial network based on global 3GPP defined standards is our goal to achieve that. So in 3GPP, we see the need to develop functions in order to best integrate the NTN at the network management framework, and this is where we work in SA. Also, we are developing the NG-RAN protocol and functions so that they can support non-terrestrial network. And the last is adoption of the 5G new radio interface and making use of any kind of satellite systems. So LEO, GEO, HEO, as well as HAPS. We see a key success factors for seamless integration of satellite. Well, minimum impact on user equipment, especially on the chipset. So, but also, let's consider, especially for the direct access, we have to comply with the RF characteristics of the most popular terminal. So 3GPP Cat3, 200 milliwatt transmit power, 0 dBi, linear polarized antenna, and 9 dB noise figure. We have to play with this. This is quite a disruption in the mobile satellite system, because before we used to design a space segment and then to specify the terminal that would operate over the space segment. Now we're doing the opposite. We are taking as a constraint the most common 3GPP user equipment characteristics, and we have to design a space segment that will serve this terminal. Of course, we are we are considering other kinds of terminals with dish antenna or phased array antennas to provide even higher performance. The other is to ensure minimum impact on the mobile network infrastructure, so a core network, radio access network, or the network management system. So these are the key success factors that we are pursuing as part of our work in 3GPP together with the cellular industry. In this table, page 8, you see a typical example of experience data rates provided on downlink, uplink to user equipment in different usage scenarios. So on the first one, you see pedestrian, 2 megabits per second downlink, 250 kilobits per second uplink. This is for the most common UE, so the class 3. And there is another class of handheld devices which has been proposed by the public safety, and which would allow to increase the downlink slightly, but more to reach about 3 megabits per second or 3.5 megabits per second on both downlink and uplink. So this is for public safety organizations so that they can benefit from video directly to a handset. So I forgot to add it, but it's there. And then you have other kind of devices that can provide higher bandwidth. So these are the target performance via satellite. On our roadmap, so during the release 15 that ended up mid-2018, we carried out 2 studies in parallel. One in SA1, which was to identify the use case for satellite network in 5G. And the other one at run level, which was to define the specific propagation model in satellite systems, and also to identify what could be the key issues to be addressed. So it was the first time we developed a propagation model for satellite systems based on the 3GPP propagation model. So now it's being described in a document I'll show you after. The next phase is actually we are near the end of this phase. It probably ends this study at the end of this year. So, well, first we have a study of the system architecture, so the 5G system architecture, so that it can support satellite access, satellite backhaul, 3GPP defined satellite access, non-3GPP defined satellite access. So these are being addressed in this study. And the study is somehow concluding that it's very feasible with reasonable changes to the standards. The impact is mainly on, there are few impacts on the core network. On the RAN side, we conducted studies in different groups. So run 1 is the physical layer impact, run 2, the access layer impact, and run 3 is the run architecture impact. So the study will conclude that the 5G standard or specification could support NTN, but there are some changes, very, very little in the run 1 physical layer, and sometimes you don't need any change. So you can use the standard as is for specific satellite configuration, but also for other satellite configuration, you may need some adaptation. In run 2, you have a little bit more because you'll see after all the effects of satellite, which are different from the cellular. Our plan is to continue the work as part of the Release 17, starting in January next year with the normative phase, which would end probably in 2021, mid-2021, and products are expected to be coming onto the market 2022. So the deployment of services would be around 2022, 2023, depending on the type of satellite system. So this is the overall roadmap. And on the slide number 10, you have the list of all the documents which are being developed. So this is so the first one is the Release 15. So this includes this propagation channel. This is the one ongoing. It's going to be completed in theory in March, but in practice we are going to advance and have it completed in December. So we are defining all solutions so that the new radio can support non-terrestrial network. I think so, and you have here all the documents in SA at service requirement level. So SA1, first there was a study to identify the use case, then the work item. So that today, as part of this TS 22261 specification, which is the 5G system specification, the top level, it includes requirements for services using satellite access. And in SA2, these are the study to identify the architectural impact to support satellite access and backhaul. You have in SA5 the study in order to have the management and orchestration functions to support the integration of satellites. So this is what's going on, and in addition to that, there is an ongoing discussion in both RAN and SA mailing list in order to scope the work that we will do during the normative phase in both SA2 and RAN working groups. So what are these special effects of non-terrestrial network scenarios onto which are different from cellular? Well, the first is related to low Earth orbiting, where you have space or aerial vehicles which are moving. And you may have a cell pattern which is moving. This also may create delay variation to cope with over the propagation or over the errant phase. A Doppler, not only a Doppler shift, but also a Doppler variation. But the good thing is that the motion of space vehicles can be predicted with their ephemeris. So you can play with this in order to mitigate this problem. The altitude is creating a higher latency, and therefore you need to review and revisit some of the timers associated to protocols at different levels. The cell size may be larger than in the terrestrial networks, that creating a differential delay and possibly will impact, for instance, procedures like the random access channel. And the propagation channel is very frequency, it's a flat fading channel. And delay spread are much less than in cellular, so this is a good thing. And in terms of duplex skiing, due to regulatory constraints, you may have FDD would be preferred in most cases, but in some cases you may have TDD. So these are the effects. So potential impacts, I briefly indicated that it's a new patch format message may be required. Adaptation of random access protocol and procedure may be needed, especially if the cell is large. You may have some synchronization issues, especially on the uplink. So the timing advance needs to be coped with, and therefore it is strongly recommended, at least for LEO system, to implement pre-compensation of timing and Doppler. So it means that you are the GMD should take into account the movement of the satellite and ensure always a fixed frequency offset at the center of the beam, as well as a fixed time. So to accommodate this varying delay and varying Doppler. HERQ, hybrid automatic request, needs to be turned off and or enhanced. So if you turn it off, then you have to operate with a lower operating point, just like we do in legacy satellite systems, or you can enhance the HERQ to cope with a larger delay. We may have to revisit the common signaling in order to broadcast some information, like the common delay, to be taken into account by the UE. On top of the timing advance that will take that will mitigate its specific location with respect to a reference point, for instance. User plane, we need to update timers, and so this is well described now in the document. Idle mode and connected mode mobility may need to be revisited in order to improve the performance, especially when you have a large delay in geostationary or Earth orbiting satellite. The delay is very high, and therefore you need to. This may create some interruption of service, and we want to prevent that, and this needs to be fixed. The handling of network identities. This is related to the cells which are moving. That well, the tracking area may be fixed, and therefore you need to manage this discrepancy between a cell moving and a tracking area which is fixed. There are going to be work needed on the radio resource management in 1.4, especially related to beam management, switching, regioning, monitoring, timing requirements. And also, if we want to add this feature, multi-connectivity, so the capability to combine satellite and cellular connectivity. This may be useful if you want to, for instance, if you are in a remote area, you benefit from a very low bandwidth capable cellular access, and you want to add on top a satellite access with higher capacity. So, and presenting a very high quality of service to the end users in these areas. So that was the presentation. I think I'm a little bit over time but maybe that will leave some time for questions.
Thank you, Nicholas, for this comprehensive coverage of the standards work linked with 5G satellite. So normally we request our participants to type their questions in the question pane, and you could answer them as you read. So I request you, when I assign a question to you, to read it out so that people know what is the question, and then you can answer it. And at the same time, I also request the participants that they can use the questions tab to ask questions. So I already have a first question for you, Nicholas, that some of the participants are asking, can these slides of yours be shared with them? So can you allow us to use them for our website? Can we share it with them publicly?
Yes, you can. I will send it to you, Tashim.
Yeah, and now we have more questions coming. Are you able to see them, or should I read out to them to you?
I see a question. So any of the is the definition of cell defined in any of the NTN CGPP specs? This is a very good question. A cell is defined in 5G or in CGPP as an area where how to say, the same cell identifier is broadcasted. So it's very, very high level definition. I think you should distinguish between satellite beams, cell, which is a logical entity. So satellite beam is a physical reality because the footprint of the satellite beam is materialized by radio coverage, whereas a cell is just a logical entity. And you may have several cells within a single satellite beam, and you may have several beams per cell. This is all possible. Another point is that a satellite beam may have a different reality compared to the NR beams. NR beams is materialized by radio resources during quantum of time that will broadcast SSB information. So NR beam is temporary, while a satellite beam may be temporary or may be permanent. It may be temporary if you have, for instance, Earth fixed beam with LEO, so that a LEO generates a beam that targets a specific geographical point, the Earth. So we call that Earth fixed beam footprint, as opposed to Earth moving beam footprint. So this is, for instance, Globalstar and Iridium kind of satellite. They have a beam footprint that moves as the satellite moves over the Earth. So you see there are different combinations possible. I hope I answered the question. Oh, I see a lot of questions. Oh dear. Okay, the first is, what are the frequency bands being considered for LEO? There are two types of frequency bands. So in FR1, so below 6 GHz, typically the frequency band at 2 GHz is considered. Maybe also in some cases bands at what we call the extended C band, so 3.5 to 3.8 gigahertz. And in FR2, you can deploy in K band, QV band, as well as KU band. Is there a proposal for E-band for LEO? E-band, I don't remember exactly the frequency band. I think it's very high in the millimeter wave band, and I think it's somehow, I'm not sure if it is related to QV band, or is it higher band, but I don't think they are planned yet, because still QV band is to be filled up. But why not in the future? Apart from satellite, can you foresee any other connectivity means could arise from long distance railway application? I've heard that there are plans to deploy a supercell base station, so providing several hundreds of kilometer range. But I think that there is a debate now, but it's using base stations which are on top of a very, very high mast, or on top of a hill or a mountain. And in any case, at the end, at the cell edge, you get, just like in satellite, you get less performance. So you get than the 5G initial target, but you will you will get a similar performance with as with satellite. Hope that it answers this question. Oh, another question. Are the satellites which are intended to be used multi-beam satellites? Yes, indeed. I would say all satellites are going to be multi-beam because it's with a small beam you can improve the performance and also you can close the link budget, especially with if you're serving directly class 3 UEs. Has anything been identified for tackling high latency? It's a very good question. There are two things. Well, with LEO constellation, the maximum round-trip delay will be in the order of tens of milliseconds, which is going to be similar to what is being experienced with 4G system, and therefore it is considered by most of the stakeholders within the cellular as acceptable. Obviously, it won't support some of the very high demanding latency demanding application, but the vast majority of applications are can be supported with tens of milliseconds latency. For GEO, indeed, this is a problem because the RTD is going to be around, so the round trip delay is going to be up to 600 milliseconds. So there are applications that would be, I would say, discarded. But if you combine cellular access together with a satellite access, then you combine a LEO access together with a GEO access, then you can benefit from the low latency of the LEO access and the high capacity of the GEO access. The person E-band clarified that it's 71 to 86 gigahertz. At the moment, I've not heard anything about any plans. I think it's more R&D at this stage, but indeed that could be envisaged. And we know that in cellular industry they are looking at that band, so that there could be benefit to also deploy constellation or satellite, whether LEO or GEO at these bands. How can I contribute to this? Well, there are two ways. First, you could be well, if you're a member of SUSHPP, obviously you can take part in the meetings and contribute and so on. But if you're not a member of SUSHPP, you can always join the group that I advertised, and maybe I should show it again. So you are very much welcome to join this SSIG group, the Satellite Stakeholders Interest Group, which gather members of SUSHPP as well as non-members of SUSHPP, and to discuss on how to coordinate towards strategic peace. So you're very much welcome to join this group, and you can just send me an email, and I will be very happy to add you on the list. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I see. How the regional regulatory aspects and security will be handled in specification. This is all your questions are very good and very relevant. Indeed, one of the key issues that was raised in essay 2 is about regulatory aspects and how to make sure that, because you may have satellite beams which are cross-border, and regulatory, you have to deal with this, and this is why we will introduce the notion of multi-cell per beam, so that we can ensure a cell be within a country in order to comply with a lot of, for instance, emergency call, local intercept aspects. Will there be periodic external handover in the case of LEO? Well, it is indeed. If you have LEO with transparent payload, then the external handover may take place when a terminal moves from the service area of a gateway to another service area. So it's not very frequent. And the XN interface is going to be on the ground. However, if you have a GND on board, you have XN, which is could be mapped over the inter-satellite link, and there you may have more frequent handover. So as the one satellite disappear over the horizon, it has to be replaced by another one, and therefore you could have XN-based handover between the two satellites. But this has been treated at run 3, but it's going to be specified probably in in the release 18, not release 17. Are you going to consider satellite-to-satellite links in 5G? Yes, we just discussed about that. Indeed, especially if you have a regenerative satellite payloads, you could have indeed GND on board or part of the GND, or you could have IAB functions on board. It's indeed makes very relevant to have a thing, but this is going to be addressed in the future. Sachin and Alok, I'm not sure that have I answered to all of the questions?
Yes, I think you have been very patient, Nicholas. Indeed, there were a lot of questions, and maybe there might be still coming some more. But in the interim, there are no questions. But I just, while listening to your presentation, and especially from the context of island countries, where my project team leader Andreas also regularly works, I was wondering what is the cost of a satellite versus regular GSM connectivity? Is it? And it's of course a pricing issue and not, let's say, a standards question. But have you contemplated for those countries the cost of connectivity? Do you have any opinion on that? On the cost of satellite connectivity versus regular?
I'm not sure about the question. Because I have difficulty to hear you. maybe there is a bad quality line. I'm not sure. I got your question. You're considering like low populated area countries?
Yeah, I was just asking you that if in an island country we have a satellite connectivity for, let's say, regular internet, is it going to be affordable or it's going to be expensive? I mean, are there any cost considerations?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, definitely. The intent is with the standards. The impact on the satellite system cost will be twofold. Well, first, we will be able to develop and manufacture satellites to develop satellites from purchase order to deployment faster, because we expect to have more standardized satellites that can be designed. And this is a huge, it's a very important objective, also indirectly having a cost impact. The second is by accessing to the wide ecosystem and large market, the volumes of 3GPP products, we expect to decrease the cost of satellite network part, especially on the ground, dramatically, and therefore we hope to have to deliver some systems that will decrease the cost. Overall, the total cost of ownership of a satellite network will be decreased. Okay. I hope that
Thank you.
answered, and I see. Yeah.
Thank you for answering
there
that.
are some
two questions.
Yeah.
There are two more questions. We can end after that. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So one question is referring to slide number 8. Are the UE mentioned as vehicles, building area, airplane mounted, a kind of VSAT terminal? Yeah. This is yes. This is the case. So this means that most of them are going to embark like a phased array antenna, which is going to be mounted on these moving platforms and able to generate a beam towards the satellite. So yes, we can consider from an RF point of view, it's going to be like a VSAT, like the dish antenna. And then I see a question from Abhijet. I think I recognize the person. He's a colleague of mine in Sushi, I think. He said, is the present outcome in 38.821 matured enough for work item in release 17? Well, we are convinced of that, and the discussion that has gone ongoing in RAN is very interesting because we're scoping an activity which I think would be reasonable to be carried out as part of the release 17. But I'm happy to discuss more with Abhijet in Renault in 2 weeks' time, 1 week and a half.
Okay, Nicolas.
Yeah.
I think that's the end of questions. I would like to thank you for your participation and contribution. I think it's a very emerging topic about 5G satellite, and there's a lot of interest from world over. Maybe we can plan for a follow-up webinar in, maybe a year from now or a few months from now, because I'm sure that people are very interested. And as you also mentioned that we can share your slides with the people. So I think that would be so nice of you. With that, I would like to thank you again, and I would also like to thank all the participants from all over the world for joining us today. And we look forward to hear any more questions or feedback. Is any contact detail on your slide that you want to show, Nicholas, before you sign off? If somebody wants to write to you.
Yes, definitely. Well, you have my mail, but I put so this is my mail, and you have my colleague also. So because I'm the delegate in RAN working group, and Cyril Michel is the delegate in SA, and we have prepared together. So you're always welcome to send us email. And thank you very much for the questions, which are very, very relevant. Would it be possible to have the list of questions? If you can send it to me?
Yes, we will organize the questions and send it to you.
Okay, excellent. Okay, great. Thank you very much for organizing this.
Okay, thank you then. Thank you all. Have a good day.